Somewhere in the vastness of what could have been, there is a world where the most brilliant military mind in recorded history never falls, where one man's gamble at a small Belgian town called Waterloo does not end in mud and surrender, but in something far more complicated. 18 June, 1815. 120,000 soldiers. One morning of rain that softened the ground just enough to delay a cavalry charge by 4 hours. 4 hours. We gave AI every variable of that day: weather data, troop positions, supply chain records, the precise timing of Prussian reinforcements, and asked it one question: what if Napoleon wins? To understand what this means, we have to understand what Napoleon actually was. Not the legend, but the documented reality. Between 1796 and 1812, Napoleon fought 60 major engagements. He won 52 of them. His armies redrew the map of Europe 7 times. He introduced legal systems, meritocratic governments, and civil codes that 60 countries still use today in some form. And then Russia happened. The retreat of 1812 killed 400,000 of his soldiers, not in battle, but in snow, on roads that stopped being roads, in temperatures that stopped being temperatures. By 1815, Napoleon had returned from exile on the island of Elba, reclaimed France in 100 days without firing a single shot, and marched his rebuilt army north into Belgium for one final, decisive confrontation. He was outnumbered. He knew it. He needed to win before the coalition forces could unite. He almost did. The rain on the night of June 17th delayed his artillery. 4 hours later, the Prussians arrived. 4 hours earlier, they wouldn't have. Napoleon then proceeded to spend the rest of his life on a remote island in the South Atlantic Ocean, which was, by most measures, suboptimal. But AI asked a different question entirely. We gave AI the weight of everything: 100 years of European political history, economic trade data, military capability assessments, the documented personalities of every major leader who would have faced a victorious Napoleon. We asked it not just what happens next. We asked it to imagine the world we never got to live in. The answer arrived in 4 cascading stages, and the first 3 looked genuinely like progress. 1815. Napoleon defeats Wellington before Prussian reinforcements arrive. The 7th Coalition collapses. Paris celebrates. The rest of Europe goes quiet. The way things go quiet before a negotiation. 1816. AI calculated Napoleon, now unchallenged, pursues the continental system he always envisioned: a unified European trade bloc, common currency, shared legal code, not as ambition, as consolidation. 1818. Britain, isolated from continental trade, negotiates. The blockade ends. AI calculated European GDP grows at a rate 31% higher than the path our actual history took, through decades of post-Napoleonic instability and revolution. 1820. The nationalist movements that tore Europe apart throughout the 1800s, the revolutions of 1830, 1848, the unifications of Germany and Italy through war. AI calculated most of them never happen, not because freedom is suppressed, because the legal framework Napoleon installed gives them less reason to revolt. A unified Europe, 70 years earlier than the one we actually built, and built only after 2 world wars made it feel necessary. It sounds almost like the world we always wanted, and that is exactly when AI found something it could not explain away. Here is what AI calculated that we did not expect. In a world where Napoleon wins, the United States as a continental power almost certainly never fully forms. Napoleon sold the Louisiana Purchase to America in 1803 because he needed money for war and had abandoned his American ambitions after the Haitian Revolution. In a world where he wins at Waterloo, he needs neither the money nor the retreat. AI calculated an 84% probability that French North America remains French. No westward expansion as we know it. No manifest destiny. The United States, a nation of perhaps 12 to 15 states along the eastern seaboard, remains a regional power, a smaller America, a unified Europe, a world that looks almost nothing like ours. And AI calculated it was, by almost every measurable metric, more peaceful, which is the most unsettling finding of all. But there was something AI found in this better world, something that sat quietly in the data, almost invisible, until we looked directly at it. The Napoleonic Code guaranteed legal equality in ways revolutionary for its time: religious freedom, property rights, merit over birthright. For millions of people across Europe, this is genuinely better. AI calculated life expectancy rises, infant mortality drops, literacy increases faster than our actual timeline. And yet, the abolition of slavery, which Britain drove aggressively after Waterloo, partly through the moral authority of having defeated Napoleon, AI calculated is delayed by 30 to 40 years in this alternate world. Napoleon had reinstated slavery in French colonies in 1802. A victorious, consolidated Napoleonic Europe has less pressure and less incentive to reverse that. Progress and injustice, it turns out, are not opposites. They are, historically, disturbingly comfortable traveling companions. We, in our actual world, ended the Second World War and immediately began the Cold War. We built the United Nations in the same decade we built nuclear weapons. We outlawed genocide in the same century we invented it at industrial scale. AI calculated that Napoleon's world is not exempt from this pattern. It simply wears a different face. And here is the question that AI could not fully answer. If a world is measurably better for most people, but measurably worse for the most vulnerable, is it, on balance, better? We don't know. History, which we thought might tell us, turns out to be less certain than we hoped. Perhaps the question is not whether Napoleon should have won. Perhaps the question is what it means that one morning of rain, one delay of 4 hours, separated our world from a completely different one. We gave AI the weight of history. It gave us back probability. 84%, 31%, 40 years of delay. But it could not calculate the weight of the specific lives that hung inside those numbers. No model can. So, we leave you with this. Somewhere in the vastness of what could have been, there is a world that is, by most measures, better than ours. And in that world, someone is probably making a video about the world they lost, wondering, quietly, if it might have been ours.